Kia ora everyone, welcome to Golden Glimmers. I have a very special guest on the show today. Many of you will already know and love her, Lou Heller. Lou is a true Christchurch fashion icon, a stylist, an MC, and a sought-after guest speaker who brings energy, confidence, and heart to every space she steps into. I first met Lou on stage at a breast cancer cure show. One of those moments where you instantly recognize someone who not only owns the room, but does it with generosity, humour, and authenticity. Since then, I've watched Lou continue to shape and uplift the fashion and creative community here in Otautahi, using style as a tool for confidence, connection, and self-expression. Today, we're talking about her journey, her glimmers along the way, and what it really takes to carve out a meaningful, multifaceted career in fashion. So please welcome the incredible Lou Heller.
Thank you.
No problem. We'll start with a few little warm-up questions.
Cool.
So what's your favourite season?
Autumn.
Autumn?
Yeah.
Outfits?
There's something about the change that comes. Oh, do you know what? I'm going to oh God, actually, hang on a minute. I love all of them, but maybe spring. I'll go to spring because it's fresh growth, new beginnings. And I always think about, well, I kind of love winter too because I love hibernating.
Yeah.
So, and then I love summer. I think for me, when I walk through or run Hagley Park, because I live right by it, and this taught me a lot about abundance and things like that. And what we tend to do is when we see lack or lack thereof leaves or lack thereof all of the things, my brain goes to the trees going inside and producing all of the growth that we have for the fresh growth in spring. So I taught myself to really love winter, to appreciate the winter and appreciate the lack, because then when you start to see the fresh growth, I just then think a lot about winter and about what it did and what the trees do to actually produce just the fresh growth. So, but spring, because you then start to get that new, the longer days, the outfits get warmer, the days get warmer, you know, race time starts to begin, social season, even though I probably tend to do the social thing, but then I also kind of go, I'm going to tap out of that too. So yeah, probably spring.
Nice.
That's a long answer.
No, that's a great answer.
Yeah.
There's some depth to it. I appreciate that. Favourite drink can be hot, cold.
Oh, favourite drink.
Alcoholic, non-alcoholic.
That's a good question. Well, I was actually telling my children the other day about a drink we had as kids growing up that I don't know. It was a real summer tradition. So we would go out on the farm and we'd do these long hot days on the farm and do the hay. So the hay would get turned into the bales. We'd spend all day on the back of the tractor, like putting these bales into the sheds and everything else. And so my mum would bring around dinner, and she would bring around a drink called portergaff, and that was stout and raspberry and lemonade. So as kids, we kind of had this, for all intents and purposes, there was probably a fair bit of stout in it, but it didn't taste alcoholic, and it didn't at all, send me into an alcoholic type of life. But do you know what I mean? But it was it became tradition, and the taste, I can still go back to the taste of it even now.
Yeah.
So I would say that's probably my favourite drink of, if I came across it, be like, oh, that's probably my favourite drink.
Like a little bit of nostalgia.
It's total nostalgia.
Yeah, I love that.
I love gin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mother's going to be cracking up at the moment because I grew up on a farm as well. I did the days on the back of the tractor. I know exactly what you're talking about. But also he always cracks up when we go to my parents' house because my dad's not a big drinker, but he loves a stout and raspberry.
No.
Yeah, so I've actually never really heard of other people doing that.
I've never heard of anyone else having it before.
Yes, and my dad didn't breed necessarily alcoholic either, but he did always make shandies, and he would make a little shot glass for me.
Yeah, that was my life. When my parents had parties growing up, me and my brother would go around and my parents' family friends and stuff like that, they'd pour a little bit into a glass and would top it up with lemonade.
Yeah.
Love a shandy.
Those days, And then last of all, if you had the choice of a hot going for, you know, a little hot tub, a cold plunge, or like either in the ocean or river, what would you do?
Ocean.
Yeah, cool.
I find it really healing.
Yeah.
I find it, I can do it pretty much all year round, but there's something about what it makes my soul feel. It's really hard to explain what it does.
Do you like proper swim, or are we talking like a quick little dip?
In and out.
Yeah, okay, good. Like, am I the only one that kind of just will?
Unless it's warm.
Yeah.
I can, hang out in it for ages. But yeah, no, generally if it's cold, like my last swim I did was, I did a retreat over in Banks Peninsula, and I wasn't going to go in because I had my running gear on, and there's a group of us women there, and then a couple did it, and I was like, oh, no, I'm going to do it. I really felt like I was meant to have done it, and it felt so good. I just kind of left a bit of shit in the sea, really.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I love
literally.
it. But let's get started. You've kind of given us a little sneak peek into your childhood. So you grew up in a kind of farming environment. Can you tell us a little bit about that and your family and that sort of thing?
Sure. So I grew up in Taranaki,
a
little town called Manaia, which was a small farming community, about 1,000 people, I think, from memory. I could be wrong there. And our main attraction was Yarrow's Bakery. And so I grew up just on the outskirts of it, and the farm that we had was fourth generation farm. So it kind of was my dad sort of like kind of came down in that line. They actually came up from the South Island and then landed there in Nydia Bay in the Sounds. And then I'm the youngest of 4 kids, so it was my brother Nick, and then my sister Kat, brother Simon, and then Sai, and then me. And it was one of those things where back in the day, it was oldest, child generally. There was succession in the farm. My sister was very intelligent, and she was probably had that destiny in her mind around whether she was going to do, whether it was a lawyer. I think from memory, I remember her feeling she wanted to be a lawyer. That she's good at arguments and stuff like that. There's got to be one. And then,
debating.
Yeah, debating. She was an excellent debater.
Yeah.
Amazing, actually. And then my brother was really sporty, and he could have easily have sort of like done that sort of thing, and also a really great farmer as well. And then there was me, and there was kind of like, it's hard when I think there's that social conditioning. I think of like, well, the man must be on the farm, and the female, oh God, she's artistic. Oh no, what do we do? And I wasn't scholastic, so my childhood was fueled with creativity. So my mum, and her background was from a creative element of horticulture. So her parents, they were actually farmers for years themselves, but my nan was a florist and did all the local farmers' weddings when my mum was little. They moved to Tauranga, etc., and they ended up growing orchids for international markets, and my uncle ended up having tomatoes and whatever else in Tauranga. So a lot of our childhood was there, Tauranga. I want to correct myself saying that. Anyway, and so then, long story short, I felt quite lost. I felt really unsure of where I fitted. And I think my parents would probably be a little bit like, really? You felt like that? But I really felt like I didn't fit. And the reason also being I wasn't scholastic. I was highly dyscalculate, which I didn't realise at the time. There were things that were said to me through the years that I totally linked in as that is actually who I was. The truth. And I wasn't. I knew in my bones that wasn't me. I was always in my head. I was always in my room putting clothes on. I would run down to the letterbox and pick up the Easy Buy catalogues and cut out all of those, and I would recreate the looks and the models standing doing these looks, and putting music on. Music's a massive part of my life, so that kind of like took me on a massive tangent. I drew, so I was a big artist as well. Still do, but I just don't do it anymore. So for me, I would dream of designing. I would dream of being in this world of fashion, but it just over the time I had to shut it down. And I also, as we've sort of touched on, I was quite an intuitive kid. So I'd pick up on things, and things were sort of like coming in, but I taught myself to kind of like dull myself down, fit in. I then went off to boarding school, and it kind of got tougher. It became tougher because I was like, I would love to be an architect. I was obsessed with drawing homes. And I was like, I'm going to be an architect. But then that got knocked down on me because it's like, well, you're too dumb at maths, so you can't do that.
Yeah.
So being dyscalculate back then, I didn't know what that meant. And all I knew is that I just couldn't do maths. And no matter how many times the teachers would scream at me, or my, dad would probably go, God, it's that easy. I'm like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
So having to tell someone that you don't get things, and then in them screaming at you was tough. So I then taught myself to then play it safe, do the things that keep everyone happy. So I did a lot of the creative stuff at school, and that's where I felt like I fitted, but I still didn't fit because I wasn't necessarily the one chosen. And I had a very sporty brother, so I kind of went under him at school, and it was like, oh God, you're not as good as him at that either.
Yeah.
So I felt like I didn't know what to do, and then my parents separated in that time as well. And I felt like in that time, it was a huge sense of discovery and loss at the same time. It was like a loss of family, but at the same time, it was a discovery of trying to feel like, what are the things that actually resonated with me that make me feel grounded?
Yeah.
And clothing was the one. It was like, when I look back now, all my friends always ask me to help them get dressed.
Yeah.
Being creative was the thing that it just lit me up, like constant bubbles inside. It's all I drew was clothing. And it's so funny, all these things, but I just knew, I thought to be in fashion, you had to be a designer / work in a retail store. And I was like, I don't think that's what I'm meant to be doing here. So then, long story short, I moved down to Christchurch and to study interior design at CPIT. And so I wasn't at uni, and I sort of felt like I didn't really know where I sort of fitted in all of that. Met some great friends. And then I met my ex-husband when I was 20. And just prior to that, I started working at a florist shop just to kind of make some money. And in the end, that ended up taking off. And I was like, well, quit the course. I'm getting money. So I started working in a florist shop in Victoria Florist. And that's because it was a background also too, because my mum's family.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I was like, wow, that's such a natural fit, right?
Yes.
With your grandmother being in that space with the flower.
Yeah. So I didn't realise I was real talented.
Yeah.
So I kind of went from a junior to senior, like intermediate senior, like really fast.
Cool.
And then all of a sudden I was like, okay, this is really easy. I'm like, should it be this easy? And then I started training florists as well.
Yeah, cool.
So then all of a sudden I was with my ex-husband at the time. So I met him, and then I moved in with him like really fast. And then life took off, and then we got our first home, and then all of a sudden I was thrust into this stage of life where I was like I felt like I was 35, but I was 20. So then all of a sudden I was young. Then all of a sudden I was married by the age of 23, 24. Had my own florist, working in a florist, or maybe I just started my own at that point. And then George came, so my son. So here I was, 6 years out of high school, in a city that I had no family in. He was my base, my anchor. I had now a newborn, and I'm just kind of going, what? And I just sort of went off, and there I was. I just was thrust into this complete life that I was trying to sort of like figure out this narrative, and yet I'd shut down this huge part of me, which was this creative, which was the clothing, which was the thing. And then I think it kind of got caught up into the materialistic element of it, I knew how I felt in clothing. It started to wake up in me again, but then I didn't understand this massive crossover between clothing and emotion. And that's kind of like what led me to here, where I am now, in a nutshell, to a degree, is because I then, being down here, having that sort of like form of anchor, it was just my children and my husband at the time, and his family. And so
was his family from here?
Yes, they're
local.
From here.
Yeah.
Very, very local family. Yep. So basically, I went through a stage of kind of figuring out, trying to what to do, and I had my florist business for years. So I was doing big events, big things like that, and then the earthquakes hit. So I was heavily pregnant with my youngest boy. So George is 21, Marguerite's 17.
That's such a beautiful name.
It's a beautiful way, I know. She was meant to be Marigold, called Goldie, actually.
I love, yeah.
But she's like, I'm so pleased you didn't call me that. And then Will, my youngest, his name was meant to be Wolf, actually, but he's just Will, full stop. So when I was pregnant with him, it was 8 months I was pregnant, and we had the first September quake, and I thought I was going to die. I went into early labour with him a month before he was due, and it was like something clicked in me. And I remember looking, actually, no, that was the February one that this happened, but just when all this earthquake stuff happened, I just decided at that moment I was going to shut down my florist business. I didn't want to do any weddings anymore. It became about greed. I noticed there were just some brides I had at the time. I've had the most amazing time with brides, and they would never have known this. But I just remember a couple of statements that were made that made me go, oh, this is about the money. And I never wanted to do that for the money. I always did it because I loved the creation of creating something for them on the day.
Yeah.
And I just kind of went, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. So
do you know what they said? Like what? Like ish?
One of them was, I don't really care what it costs. I just want people to know that Lou Heller did my flowers. And I kind of went, ooh, that's about you wanting me because it's seen as you being seen a certain way. And it clicked in my mind of like, that's not what life's about. It was like, and they made it about me being a tangible thing.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
So interesting, Lou. I think that's like a perfect little snip into who you truly are. Right? Like that's not surface level. That's like some core values, but also like your self-awareness is next level for you to be like actually, and probably your values and integrity, to be fair. Because I think a lot of people would see that as a win, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like you're like, no, I want you to love my work. I want you to feel what I felt when I was creating it, because for a lot of creatives, it's about the experience, right? It's not about the actual thing. Like that's just an output, but it's like what it took to kind of get there and the building and things of it.
Yeah. And that led me to then where I am today, because I then was like, well, what am I going to do? And then I'm like, well, fashion's always been my thing. And I always had people say to me, Lou, you should be styling. You should be styling. You should, can you do me? And da da da. And I'd be like, I just don't believe in myself, and a lot of my lack of belief came from years and years of things that were told, or and I just took them on. I was like, yeah, and I'll get to this point, and there is a bit of a circle point here, but then the February quake hit, and that was like a true change point for me. And an analogy that I kind of liken it to is, everyone always says that thing, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. And I had this really crazy vision just after the February quake of an apple tree. And the apple tree was in front of me, and there were these apples on there, and there were some ripe ones and then some rotten ones, just kind of getting ready. And then in the earthquake, all the apple tree did was like shake, and then the ripe ones fell to the ground, and even some of the non-ripe ones fell too. And so I had to look at all of these apples and go, okay, well, rather than trying to put you back up again, the non-slight ripe ones, I might as well try and make something out of it. So I was like, okay, well, let's make an apple crumble and a chutney, because there's more things you can actually make with apples than you can with lemons.
Yeah.
So I was like, right, well, let's just get on with it then. So I took that on board and was like, okay, well, they've got all this clothing in my wardrobe. What a waste. It's just sitting there, this earthquake. I thought I was going to die in the February quake, twice actually. So I was like, okay, well, life's short. So why am I keeping all this clothing for good days? I was going to start wearing it all.
Yeah.
So I had my 3 little ones, and I just started wearing all of my things. And I just started to notice the way I felt.
Yeah.
And what I was drawn to on certain days of when I was feeling low, I would just put that on or whatever. And in those days, there wasn't really activewear.
Yeah.
So I always question everyone and who always wears activewear. I'm like, well, what if activewear never existed? What would you wear? So again, I'll go back to the things. So I started to notice a lot of the things internally that were going on. And so then there were things going on in my marriage that I was not addressing, and I was not voicing myself and voicing the things that really needed to be. So rather than discussing and being able to talk about the things that should have been, it was starting to lead into more and more and more, and then the contempt was starting. So just things were never allowed to be talked about. So then I got shut down more and more, and then we red zoned, and so in the end we ended up building a home in the country. And built a beautiful home. It was amazing, and it was our life home, you know, and the kids were there with us. Obviously, it was our future-proofing home. Couldn't wait, really excited, but something was niggling in me, and it was my purpose. I just could feel like I had something that I was needing to be doing. But this lack of belief was kind of kept on creeping in, this kind of like, everyone's going to see right through you, you know, with imposter syndrome. And then I decided that I would just blatantly start a clothing store. So I started up with a friend of mine. We opened up a clothing store which had like Zimmerman and Camilla Mark.
Amazing.
And so that was called Mrs. Smith Loves. And we had no background, but I just had this passion for like, I want to provide pieces that are standout and people will go back to and wear over and over and over again, and because that's how I saw my wardrobe. That's always how I've ever shopped. So
can I ask a little question?
Yes.
Started a clothing store. Like, I'm from the game, so I'm like, shit, how did you manage to pull off getting like Zimmerman and those sorts of like caliber of clothing?
Off
like
the bat?
Yeah.
We still don't know. Like, we honestly,
just meant to be, obviously.
There was no one else. Like, Valentine's didn't have it. At the time, Linwoods didn't have it either. And we were gung-ho. We just kind of like, once we got one, we used that one to leverage. So then we got Zimmerman, and then we used Zimmerman to leverage, and you know, and then we had like, honestly, we had framed denim. Like, this is years ago when Instagram first started. So
cool.
Maybe
because you were an actual customer, so like you could say go talk to them or contact them or whatever, but you really actually love the products. So
we just had a vision. We were like, and I think when you're a little bit gung ho, you're like, oh, we'll give it a go. It's quite funny. So that happened, and then we didn't have a physical store. We had an online store and studio. So the studio then came into the house that we built, and it was amazing. So women would come out and we'd have these events and things, and they're just, you know, and I've still got people who run into me today and go, I've still got that piece, and this is like Will's 15 now, so 14 years ago. And I've still got jewellery. I've still got I've got pieces from it, like incredible. Excuse me. So anyway, my business partner at the time, she left, and then I was like, okay, this is it got really tough, got really hard. And then other stores were starting to take the brands with exclusivity, and they had buying power. We didn't have the buying power, and that's what really kills the business. Your purpose goes because it becomes about money, and not the drive behind it. It's survival. And I was just like, this is too hard. I started to lose hair. Lost a lot of weight, and I was like, this is too much. And my ex-husband at the time, he was traveling a lot around the world with his business, and he was away a lot, and I had 3 little kids. I'm like, what am I doing this for? This is not serving me any purpose. And the moment that I decided, I was like, oh my God, massive weight off my shoulders. But I still had this burning desire, and one night I remember lying in bed, and I got a vision of the world in front of me. I was out in the stars, and I just got a vision of the world and my arms around the world, giving a big cuddle. And I was like, that's weird. I'm like, what the hell is that about? I'm like, well, it's obviously I'm meant to be helping people some way. So what is it that I need to be addressing here, or what is it that I think I can do? So I just sat on it for a while, and still had people asking me to help them styling. And I started to kind of like do it a little bit. And I was like, oh God. And, you know, I was charging. I was like, I felt guilty for charging. And then I got approached by a woman who has a business online clothing store, and it was all from home as well. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I know this. I know how to do that, and I know stock levels. I'm dyscalculate, but I know fiscal number by stock. So I can walk into a store and go, too much stock, not enough stock, You've got a 6-week week of like when someone would want to purchase, and then beyond that it becomes So I can work maths out that way. And it was, when I look back on the business, probably didn't work out as well that way, but I walked straight into this place and I was like, oh, you got way too much stock. We need to So it was great. And I learned a lot from her. And I learned also how not to be in business, but I also learned the parts of me which I love and what I just really gravitated towards really well. So I ended up doing her buying, styling, photo shoots, which is a whole nother thing. and more like there was all these parts of the business that I was like, wow, this is really, really exciting. It was sort of like this behind the scenes side. The pivotal point for me, which is where I am today, is because she used to do a lot of events, and so people would come and she would show them the lookbooks, and then they'd pre-buy it, and I just remember this one particular event. A woman was at it, and she had already she was coming to buy this purchase thing that she'd actually pre-ordered, and she picked it up, and she and I said, didn't you just buy one like that, like identical, like 6 months ago? And she goes, oh yeah, it's still got the tags on it. I know. And da-da-da. And I kind of went, whoa, really? I was like, so you've never worn it? She goes, no. And I was like, what? I was like, well, what if I came in and showed you how to wear it multiple ways? Because I thought that's what everyone did. My brain works in ways that if I shut my eyes, everything's three-dimensional. So that's why my work's really good and what I can do in the work, because I can still go back to a client's wardrobe from 5 years ago and still remember what's in it. So if they rang and said, I'm going to look at this top or whatever, I go, oh, yeah, you've got that and you've got that, so you could put that together and da-da-da. So that's what I've always done. And I thought everyone could actually create outfits in their mind and put things together multiple ways, because that's what I did as a kid.
Yeah.
So, and so I said that to my boss, and I was like, what if I went in, like, made outfits for people? And she goes, no, that would probably not be great and not very effective. And I went, oh. And I was like, oh. I was like, there's something missing here. I was like, I've got to teach people. I've got to talk to people. I've got to help them, like, have fun in their wardrobes and create and get the longevity of the wardrobe. And because to me, wouldn't that be a more sustainable way to, to buy? And so anyway, long story short, I left the business. I was like, I've got to do this. I've got to get out there and do this. And so then one day I read a book called about Ikigai, which is the Japanese way of purpose. And it was what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you love. Did I miss that? Hang on. What you love, what you need, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what's missing. I think there were 4 things. I might have just repeated one. Anyway, there's 4 main points, and in that's the vocation. So there's like these 4 circles, and in that you get these more 4 circles, and right in the centre is that purpose, and you cannot have it without each corner being there.
Yeah.
And I just kind of went, well, what's missing? I'm like, well, being in people's wardrobes, teaching them what to do, I'm like, well, what does the world need? I'm like, to do it in a fun way, so there are all of these different things of that I was starting to understand of what I'm really good at. I think that's the other one, what I'm really good at naturally.
Yeah.
And so, I just kind of went, oh my God, that's it. And I was like, bing, this massive light bulb. And I'm like, I've got to do it. I've just got to back myself. So I went full tit into just kind of creating this thing of putting myself out there. And it was like, I did little wee Tupperware parties where I would invite people around to my house and I would talk them through the process of their wardrobe. And then at the same time, what I started to do was I went through a really tough bout in my marriage. Something happened, and I was like, oh, I think we need to go and talk to someone here. Anyway, long story short, a friend of ours at the time was getting, they were going through marriage stuff, and he kept on going, and because he promised her that he would keep on going, and because they had gone through separation. And anyway, long story short, he would come around, and I never took sides when they were going through what they did. And he said to this day, he's like, you're the only one that always pulled me up on my stuff, but you never took a side.
Yeah.
And he said, and that kept me going also as well. And he went through this type of therapy. It was intuitive therapy. Yeah. And it was like, he said, I feel seen for the first time in my life. And I was like, I want a bit of that. So I watched him transform, and they got back together, and it was beautiful. And he's still, to this day, they're still like some of my closest friends. And so I then started, my ex-husband and I, we went to therapy, and after about a few sessions, he thought he was cured.
I'm fixed now. We can stop, and it's actually quite expensive. 3 sessions, we good?
And I'm like, okay, I don't think I'm done. So I kept on going, and I just got so much out of it because I'd been to therapy in the past. And you end up telling them what you think they want to hear. Yeah. But this was different. This was like me hearing what I needed to hear. It was like, oh, and there was accountability in it. There was all of these things that made me go, oh yeah, no, I don't like that feeling. But it made me aware of the things that where I had placed myself or enabled, or and I became a bit of a mirror in it. But man, it was amazing. And so then after a while, they were like, "We'd love you to train," and I'd be like, I don't know about that. I was like, no. And then just one day, it took a long time, but I was like, do you know what? I want to do it for my children. I want to learn these skills.
I did not know this about you. I'm sorry, but I can't wait to debrief about this because we have so much in common. This is actually incredible.
Right.
But keep going, sorry.
Okay, so I trained as a therapist for 3 years. Yeah, intuitive therapist.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of work. Yeah. And when I say a lot of work, I mean, God. But I did it for my kids. I wanted to be a mum, and this was before I even went through separation. I wanted to be a mum for them where I was just guiding and listening rather than parenting. And what I was conditioned with was parenting. Yeah. And if you don't do it that way, you're wrong. So I told myself over time that I was wrong. My parents would never ever say that that's how they thought they made me feel. But because, and I'll get to this point as well, but there's this part of being a feminine where I actually listened to this yesterday on a podcast, and they were talking about how in an argument we can go, or when we get told things, emotion is attached to things that get said, clothing we wear is attached to emotion, memories are emotion, songs are emotion, and feelings. So if we go back to an argument, I could go back to things that have been said to me over the years, and I can remember the feeling. I can remember the way my teacher told me that I was useless at something at the age of 6. So when things like that get held with emotion, what we do is we tend to hold on to things, which then sows these seeds of holding on to feeling, which then can prevent us from wanting feeling, wanting to, So long story short, I had to undo a lot of feelings because I wanted to hold my kids' feelings and not put my feelings onto them. So I still had my feelings, but it lost the projection. So that 3 years taught me how to hold my feeling and not hold someone else's feeling and have the buffer in between, but then also have that massive allowance of intuition. Yeah. Because that's actually what taught me. I'd always been like that, and I'd shut it off because I was made to feel it was wrong. I was told to not trust intuition. I was told to, what do you mean you see that vision? And, you are bonkers. You are actually crazy. Oh, my God, you're a witch. So this language gets taught and conditioned around us to make us feel that our instincts are wrong. Yeah. So all it did was just enable my instincts to just explode and then heal at the same time, hold my kids. And then, lo and behold, I did go through separation and divorce, which was the toughest thing. I would never recommend it. Ever, but on the flip side of it is
don't rate it.
Yeah, but on the flip side of it is, if I trusted my instincts all those years ago, it may have been a different story. I don't know. Yeah. But the thing is that what it taught me is that I had been conditioned to a degree to have the white picket fence and have the children, and that will be happy. Oh, you'll be happy. When I went through things with my marriage, I had friends kind of going, well, what do you mean you're leaving? Like, you've got everything you want. You've got the money, you've got the blah blah. And I was like, yeah, wow, okay, well that's kind of like going back to the wedding story of me giving up the florist shop. So it was like the situation I was in was not about the lifestyle that I had. All I wanted was just true love, and I think everyone has that feeling. But I realised in that course and training for 3 years, I was actually the love, and I needed to actually embody that. And so it was in that click moment that I went, oh my God, there is a massive thing going on here with wardrobes. And I was like, and listening. And so in that time, as I trained, and then I finished the training, and I was also doing all my client work as well with my clients with wardrobes. People were opening up to me, and they were saying more things and why they weren't wearing things. And I'm kind of going, there's a crossover here. And then the more that I've done it over time, not only the more healing I've done in myself because of all my client stories, but the more I'm delving into the real big, deep stuff of like, whoa. So honestly, I can't even begin to tell you the stories of what I hear. Heartbreaking stuff of bullying at teenagers, mums bullying, dads bullying, all of these stories that get linked to what we wear, how they hold people back, how they then can project it to turning into being loud in their clothing. And it's fine. And I think there's this amazing thing around your personal style, which comes down to it's being like, hey, be cool. Because being cool is being calm. So when you're nice and calm, you actually put on the things that because you're just being you, and no one can actually. I was thinking about that song Titanium by Sia. There's nothing can actually get through to you. Everything bounces off like titanium when you are walking around with your head high and your shoulders back. People feel that. They look at the clothing and they're like, oh, I love your t-shirt, or I love your dress. And it's because you're embodying the calmness of how that piece makes you feel, and that's the style. So everyone thinks clothing and style is all to do with the clothing. That's the external part, that is the validation. But in actual fact, we're being drawn to the things that actually validate who we are, no matter what. So if we're feeling glum, probably put on activewear, because we don't want to be seen or whatever. So there's this massive link between clothing and that's the stuff that really excites me, because I get really drawn into it, because I love collaborating with, like designers, and, I'm doing that at the moment. It's just what I'm doing after this. This is my first meeting. So, yeah, so I'm now, and going right back to a degree, how we talked about before, about that when designers, how we said about the creation, when you're creating whatever, you're doing it because you want someone to feel what you feel when you're designing these pieces. That's the magic of a true designer. And my son's next year, my oldest boy, he's about to go and start doing fashion design. So yeah, I'm so excited because I've got a funny story actually. So he is the most, he's so amazing. Like he's got the most amazing way that he puts his clothing on. He's really creative. He could be on the streets of New York in terms of what he wears. He's always said, I don't feel like I fit in, but because he just looks so cool. He's gorgeous and he's good looking. And, so when he was 3 years old, I walked downstairs and I had this brown linen vest on that I'd saved up a lot of money for. And I walked downstairs and I walked into the lounge, and my ex-husband was there, and my son just looked up and he goes, Mum, I love your vest, you look like Shrek. And I just kind of, I was like,
thanks, love.
Yeah. I was like, great. I was like, you little shit.
This cost me a lot.
Took it off, never wore it again. And it broke my heart at the time, but I know he meant it because he loved Shrek, and it reminded him of that I took it the wrong way. And that goes all the way back to my clients, and when comments get made, the fear of walking into an office and someone kind of going, oh, where are you off to, Sharon, or something. So, there's all of these things that get linked up with it, but the nice thing is he now gets to go and do that himself. But I don't ask my kids, I don't ask anyone. When I've got something on, I won't say to them, what do you think? Oh, occasionally I might do, if I'm wobbling. And funny enough, I've got something on later on tonight, and I've got this dress that I haven't worn before that a friend of mine sent to me. It's actually a linen dress, funny enough. And my son, he texted me at the time, and so I actually said, do you reckon I could wear this? And I've never asked him anything before. And I sent it to this video to him, and it was me in the dress, and he goes, Mum, that is so cool. He goes, fashion and style's all about risk, Mum, do it. And I went, whoa. I was like, what a turnaround. And I went right back to that moment of the Shrek vest. But it led me to basically, you think about the fashion of what we buy now, and you walk into a store and you see, like, say, whether it's Seed or Country Road or whatever, they're relying on people buying it for the bottom line of the dollar and the shareholders and stuff like that. So it loses its filtering system of why designers are actually designing. You go
what's going to sell,
right? So when you go to the real top level, like those designers like Victoria Beckham and all those incredible designers that are using their creations to kind of like filter that these are the ones that these designers down here, or they're not designers, the stores are filtering down from, because they're looking at what is selling and through the emotion of why, because these guys up here, they're designing because they can see what's missing, how they want to make someone feel. They're doing the ikigai. And, they're always going to have the pieces that will be the dollar, the dollar sell. but those ones that are creating change, they're the ones that are coming from this part of them.
Yeah.
And so what I'm trying to do is get people to filter through that and filter through all of the clouds to try and get that clarity, because I want them to go back to the things that give them those popping candy moments of actually what lights them up, because they'll be naturally drawn to it either way in all areas of life. It's not just the clothing, it's everything.
Totally.
Yeah.
Can you tell me, like, you, we talked about your childhood and, you know, some of self-expression, but also a bit of suppression of emotion and kind of keeping stuff to yourself. Like, how did you give yourself permission? Was that as part of your therapy training or whatever, where you actually just like pushed on through?
It's a really good question.
Or did you almost have to hear yourself tell one of your clients, like, to give themselves permission to self-express and just do the thing and that sort of thing, and then you kind of heard it yourself and you're like, come on, Lou, do it yourself?
I'd say definitely the training for me was massive. There wasn't probably, there probably was a few light bulb moments. One of them, I think, was waking up to the point that, and my children know this story, I thought I was destined to have kids. And I thought, you know, I'm the youngest of 4, can't wait to have 4 kids. I love being one of 4. And then I had my first boy, and he's slightly on the spectrum. He's on the spectrum. And so that for me taught me that I was like, oh, can't put that back. I'm like, oh, it's not what I asked for. This is really hard. And but honestly, I fought tooth and nail for him to be seen and heard as a kid. But it was tough, you know. He wasn't a child that had instant, I didn't have the instant feeling of, what is that emotion when you first time mum, and it floods, whatever that is. I didn't get it. And I was like, I kept waiting for this feeling, the instinct to kind of crack in. And it wasn't until my daughter came along, actually, that I went, oh my God, there it is. Oh my God. And it just flooded. And then, so it was tough. He didn't look me in the eye. I didn't understand how, as a newborn, he would never look me in the eye. And I didn't realise that there was, that, you know, we had a child that needed, you know, extra need. And it was tough. And I got told, oh, there's something wrong with him. You know, I had family members saying, you know, he's naughty and all these sorts of things. I'm going, he's not, there's something. And, you know, it was a pressure in our marriage because I could feel there was something vibrational in him. So he's actually the reason I'm even here, because he taught me to understand my own vibration. So I couldn't take him to those supermarkets and things when he was little, because he couldn't deal with the sounds and the people and everything else. He still doesn't really cope with it these days. So I fought for him to get some help. It wasn't until he was, I think, about 12, I think we finally got some answers. And then he went off to private school, and we got him to the learning program there. And oh my God, life-changing. But it taught me about vibration, that my own vibration of what I was feeling, it was feelings that I was feeling, rather than the vibration of actually this kind of like just words, if that makes sense. And so when I was doing the course, I was starting to listen to him better, because I could feel him rather than watch what was going on. And I learned how to unparent myself, to then be a parent that was actually able to hear him on a completely different level, which then allowed me to understand the other two on a much different level as well. So it was this really amazing thing of like that. I was still doing me and then doing all the kids and things as well. But also too, I think the earthquakes was another big one, because I remember I, over the years, learnt how to dim myself and keep myself really safe. And then one night after the earthquakes, we had a little network of friends that we would get together and go out. And when the city first started opening again, and there's a Mexican restaurant which was on Victoria Street, and we all went there. And I do love a tequila. Actually, tequila is probably one of my favourite. Neat on the rocks, actually. And we were drinking tequila, and this alter ego, my grandfather, my papa, actually called me Susie as a kid. And he was the only one that called me Susie, and my mum's dad. And then so anyway, this one night we were out and I was drinking tequila, and this alter ego, Susie, came out, and she named herself SIOUXIE, and she wasn't bad or vomiting or anything or badly drunk. I just was on fire, and I was like, just
letting
this
it out.
massive energy was just like literally like pouring out of my bones, and everyone thought I was hilarious, and I was like getting away with stuff, and I was being cheeky, and it was this, everyone was just like, who is this Lou? And I got, and the next morning I was thinking about it, I was going, oh my God, she's been in there the whole time, and I've been stuffing. Yeah. And then I realised over the time, and when I did all this training and everything else, I was like, oh my God, it's actually who I am. And I kept on like shoving her down because she was too much. And she was too loud, and she was like, you can't do that, and you can't be too much of this, and you can't be do that, because I had to be safe, and I had to be a certain person for a certain someone, and I had to be the mum, and I had to, and so then I just
really just trying to fit in,
totally,
just trying to fit into a world
in.
that you thought you,
So then it just sort of became about this embodiment, that I had to be able to embody her and learn and trust how to embody her without being ranked. And actually about, and so then over time, as I've sort of felt like I've done that, I still have to be quiet. I still have to be home. Totally. That's why, because I'm away all the time. If I come home, I've got to, I don't want anyone to touch me. I've got to be really quiet. But there's parts of me where she's all me, and she's absolutely, and I can quite often be at things and I don't have to drink, which I really like. Sometimes I feel like I do like to drink, and so that's okay, but I don't go crazy, but I don't feel like I'm someone that relies on it, because I know she's in there, and I can bring her out when she wants to, but I also feel like there's this real beautiful balance of femininity and masculinity. So, and I think that that's what we all have inside us, is this real beautiful balance, because in my style, I've got this core style of what I am, but I can lean into it with more femininity, but I can lean into it into androgyny, and so there's this part of this that I feel within her, is that she's probably more in the feminine, but she's very kind of strong in that, and that masculine doesn't mean that I'm manly. It just means there's strength in it. So when I talk about, I quite this word that comes up often in the work that I do is, because I work with the 3 words system around with my work, and a word that comes up a lot for people when I take them into this place to get them this word, 3 words, often they'll go, sexy, can I say that? And I'll go, yeah, you can. I was like, because the hard thing is that word sexy over time has become almost symbiotic with thinking that it's all about tits and bums and all of that, but in actual fact it's actually just strength, a feminine strength that actually a man can feel too, but they've been told, they're made to feel, to kind of shut down their emotions. So the beautiful thing of
and what are the other words?
Well, mine are classic, bold, fun. They are my 3 words. But other words that come up, definitely. Sexy is probably the number one that people really struggle to say. They kind of want to do it under their breath. But I get them to kind of like own it. So honestly, I've never met one client. I've got hundreds of clients that have never had the same 3 words. I find it so fascinating, because that is actually the embodiment of who we are and the things that we get drawn to, and the people and all of that. So it doesn't mean we've got to be all 3 at once, but it means that we can lean into more or whatever, but it will allow us to kind of like be drawn to the things, because it's mirroring us the whole time. It's like when you meet people and you're like, I feel like I've known you before, but you feel familiar, or, you can generally pick up things really fast, or people, based on the things that you get attracted to, or, there'd be some sort of like sync, or, whatever. So
love it all. This is also interesting. I've had like 1,000 questions pop into my mind throughout this whole thing, and I'm like, just wait, she's in the flow, just wait. But love all of it. I guess that one thing that I am more curious to know is how do you make your clients feel safe with you? Like you mentioned about how they want to say sexy under their breath or whatever, but you do get it out of them. I think that people would actually probably struggle to even say that in front of their own families or their best friend, that kind of thing.
Well, that's the thing. So people go to a therapist to go for an hour.
Yeah.
People can come to me and I'm with them sometimes for like a day.
Yeah.
So
you must just sit in the bottom of the wardrobe and kind of unpack some stuff, literally. Yeah.
So that's why my trainings ended up being so. It's the most amazing tool. I'm not there to therapize. Like I don't sit there and kind of go, well, I think you've got to, whatever. I just hear them.
Yeah.
I tell them my own stories.
Yeah.
I tell them my own idiosyncrasies. I tell them my crazy stuff. I tell them the things that make them feel seen and heard, because I never had that. So having someone that you can trust is, trust for me is a massive, massive thing. Because I don't trust everyone. And that's something for me that I'm even learning myself is how to trust certain people, or because it's so vulnerable.
Yeah.
To tell someone your private things, you've got to be in a real place of trust and vulnerability. So you've got to allow them to feel safe, that no matter what they say, they're going to be heard and they're not going to be judged. I can't judge a soul because I'm not living or have lived their lives.
Yeah.
I can't judge anyone on what they wear because I don't know what stories they've heard. So where I come from, I've just had to learn I can't judge anyone, like unless they've done something personal to me where they've like really, been a mean girl or mean man. I'm like, then I will still have to kind of come at it from a place of like, yeah, I see what you're doing, but not okay, and you're not very nice for doing that, but I still have to kind of like
meet them
halfway. So the work that I do, I have to make them feel seen and heard, and it's not instant, but it's amazing the words I feel or what I get back from it is seeing that shift in them. That's when I know I'm holding them and they feel heard and held, because I feel them relax, and that's having that great gift of the intuition.
Yeah.
Is I can, quite often I'll turn up to clients even before and I'll be picking up on stuff anyway. So that's the nice thing of some clients are louder, some aren't. So sometimes they're harder to, but that's where I bring in my humour. So, I've got to be...
Yeah, you make yourself relatable with your humour. Yeah. That's so funny.
Yeah.
So I have two things. First of all, when I think of you talking about Susie,
yes.
so I must have been quite a similar kid to you. A lot of drawing, a lot of in my own bedroom with outfits and all of that sort of thing. But I was 8 years old in like a tiny, where I'm from, there's a population of 300 people.
Oh, where are
like
you from?
Tapawera, so
Right.
up Nelson, kind of
Right.
Motueka Valley
Beautiful.
ways. But I did a school play, and my character's name was Carla, and she wore a bright outfit and she was really outgoing and that sort of thing, and I loved it, and that was the kind of unlock for me.
Yeah.
And then the next year I moved schools, found it really hard because it was a bit bigger school and that sort of thing, but there was a play, and I got to be Paddy the Pirate, and she was loud and all of that sort of thing and had this loud laugh, and I always hated my laugh, so I'd always try and pack it down, but she was allowed to have a crazy laugh, and so that gave me permission.
God. Right.
And that's what kind of taught me that it was okay and to channel her a little bit.
Yeah, channeling, totally.
And then going to the intuition side, we have a small amount of time left, but I would love, 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 love to have this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I can relate a lot, but probably the biggest part of being able to relate is the bit of people's judgments and kind of almost telling you not to talk about it because it's not real and that sort of thing. So, well, I guess, what were your first kind of experiences that you can remember?
Okay, I get goosebumps actually. So I think one of the things is one of the instances I can remember very clearly being really little and being able to understand people's emotions from afar, or who to trust at a really little age. So I could tell if there was a kid that was, I don't know, I'd clam up. And then, or I would be at ease, or around like my friends' parents, I could just instantly tell. I remember being on growing up in Taranaki as well. We used to do a lot of like school camps. I mean, everyone does school camps, but we went to this particular area when I was about 12, and it was and I can't remember the area, but it's just north of New Plymouth, and it was where they had I don't know how to describe it, but like there was a lot of land war. A lot of land war. And I remember stepping onto this particular land, and it was like something shook my body. And I just remember seeing and feeling a lot of people there, and I just kind of kept it to myself.
Yeah.
I remember feeling like I shouldn't be there. I remember feeling like it was just way too sacred, and pain. I could see blood and gore and things that I was like, this isn't right. And I just didn't say anything. And I just sort of like didn't worry about it. Then I went off to boarding. Next thing I probably noticed was when I went off to boarding school, I remember waking up one night and there was a man on the end of my bed.
Yeah.
And I kind of like woke up and he just sort of like put his hand there and just kind of went, don't worry, Mum, your mum will come and get you tomorrow and it'll be all right and whatever. And I was like, what? And then I got a phone call in the morning and Mum goes, oh, Uncle such and such, she passed away last night, so we've got to head up to the funeral. And I was like, oh, okay, I think I knew that. But there's that whole of you know, running into people and you'd be like, oh, I knew I was going to see you.
Yeah.
Or there's that sort of stuff. But then I think also too, as I got older, it got stronger and stronger, but I also had to turn it off fast. So one of the things for me was a real pivotal moment when my, I'm trying to think how this happened, but my grandmother died when I was 11 and she had some jewellery, and when she died it all disappeared, and I had nieces and my cousins and things like that, and I was meant to have gone to all of us girls or whatever. And so it kind of disappeared for a while, and then my auntie died, and it kind of like come out again and whatever else. And I just remember I had this, I was lying in bed one night, I was awake, and I just smelt her, felt her, and then I heard her voice say, don't get involved. And I was like, what is that? And anyway, my ex-husband walked in, and he's like, oh my God, he's seen a ghost. And I was like, oh, so, hurry up and tell the story. I was like, yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but I think I just had my nana here and whatever else. And anyway, next morning, woke up and there was an email about us 4 kids had to choose this jewellery because it was found, whatever. And I was like, no, don't want any. I was like, I don't want to get involved. I was like, just something strongly in me said, don't get involved, don't get involved. And so I said, it's okay, it's just jewellery, Dad. I don't want to actually get involved with actually having any. I said, the memories of her I have are in here, and I don't need a tangible thing that is potentially going to go, you know, either into my grave or my children aren't even going to respect it anyway. So I said, I'd rather someone else have it. It's okay. And he goes, and then he sort of got a bit fired up. It's like, no, I really want you to have it. I'm like, it doesn't mean anything. To me, I've got jewellery that really means a lot to me. But I don't actually, that one doesn't. And anyway, it caused such a disrupt. It's kind of ended up kind of me stepping away and trusting my own intuition over that stuff. And so I got to have a lot of strength in that. And that's what told me to then start trusting and start listening. And the second that happened, and then I did the course, blew it up. Yeah. And so then I have to now, at times I've got to wind it down because it just gets too loud. Yeah. And I've also learnt now how to, if I'm in spaces and I can feel things, I'll remove myself just because I feel a lot of people's stuff, which I don't want to. And it can get in my head a little bit about it. So that's why I tend to be at home a lot and actually just sort of keep myself nice and quiet because I just, it can be really hard. And there is a real thing, I think, too, of that language of I haven't quite learnt how yet sometimes to not have it because I'll go to bed at night some nights and I'll dream and then sometimes the things happen and I kind of go, oh my God, I don't want to know that. Yeah. So, but then I also just want to live a goddamn normal life. Yeah. You know, I don't want to be the crazy lady walking around with stuff hanging off me all the time. Yeah. So, but it's a real gift, you know, and I don't use it all the time. Sometimes I surprise myself and things be going on with my kids, so I use it just with them more often than not. I don't. It's sometimes often I won't even notice, but then things will happen. I kind of go, oh my God, you're going to say that, or whatever. So, so I joke about it a lot because
Same.
I just have to just think it's just normal.
Yeah.
And it's not weird. And it's not something I just walk around with crystals all the time. I mean, I do, but
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah. Well, I do have one in my handbag and in my
same.
car and on my desk, but no, not all the time.
Not all the time.
I'm not one of those, right?
Yeah. Don't drink the water from the moon.
I don't have sage, no.
Yeah. Only when my kids leave.
Yeah.
But that's the things that I do. They've become normal to me, and I want my children to know that that's not crazy.
Yeah.
Because I think in the old days, they were burnt on the stake because they just had the ability to listen, and that's all it is. We've all got this ability to have this. But just over time, it gets taught to shut down. So all I'm doing at the moment in the work that I do is getting people to allow to themselves to listen to that instinct.
Yeah.
So that they can trust themselves in the changing room. They can trust themselves if they want to have a cup of tea instead of a coffee. It's instincts that actually our children have innately. We have it, but it gets beaten up and beaten out of us over time. So all I want is my children to understand that that's normal.
Yeah.
And so when they're around mum and she's saging away, that's completely and utterly normal. They don't have to do it.
No.
And all I'm doing is learning everything about myself that is not wrong. And all I'm trying to do is make people understand they're not wrong. And because I can tell you right now, everyone will be listening to this, probably whoever listens, and be like, oh yeah, it's all, it's so natural to kind of see someone. When you put it down to coincidence, oh my God, I was totally thinking about you, but it's not, it's energy. It's just all energy. That's all it is energy. It's energy currency. And it's the only way to explain it is an energy currency. It's nothing to do with spookies and ghosts. And my kids are like, can you see dead people? I'm like, no. Sometimes. But no, it's a feeling. I can feel everything's in a three-dimensional aspect, and that's what I had as a kid.
Yeah.
That's what made me feel safe. That's why I was creative, because I was able to turn these three-dimensional things I was seeing into vision.
Yeah.
And draw, or be dance, or whatever it was. So yeah.
I love this whole conversation. I'm not going to cut us off right now. I'm like, let's have this conversation and then we can do something later. But I think that this is such a fabulous way to end the season, so I really want to lean into it. I just want to share a couple of personal experiences just so that I, so when I was younger, my parents ran the Nelson Foster Home. So that home used to be one of those houses that they'd send teen mums to.
Right.
To go have their babies in secrecy and then get adopted out and that sort of thing. So that house was over 100 years old, and I could see.
Wow.
Like I was 4 years old, could see babies, could see mums, that whole sort of thing, the nurses and that sort of thing. And often mum would walk into the room and I'd just be like chatting and that sort of thing. Also the farmhouse that I grew up in was more than 100 years old, see people, that sort of thing. But I had two kind of life-changing experiences, as in, I switched it off for probably all of my kind of childhood and teenage years especially. But when I was about 20, my person was my granddad, my dad's dad. He was my safe place and that sort of thing. So he died when I was 11. That was a life-changing event for me. He was an old man. It was his time, but kind of shook me up a little bit. But when I was about 20, I had this dream, went to their old house, and he was sitting around the table. And I was like, oh, what? You're dead. And I knew he had passed. I knew it. And then he was just like, no, it's okay. Come sit down. And then I'm just looking at him and I'm like, but you're dead. And he just put his hand on my hand and he's like, it's okay. And I've got you and you're going to see me again. And I woke up from that and I literally just bawled my eyes out. And my partner at the time was like, what the hell was that? But he wasn't spiritual at all. Quite an atheist, quite, that sort of thing. So quite gaslit me. But I was like, oh, I remember now. I remember this stuff. And then the other thing that happened is 4 years ago, I lost one of my really good friends, Chloe. So I worked with her for years. She was kind of my role model. When I grew up, I wanted to be like Chloe. She made me feel safe. I was a bit of not that cool a kid, but she made me feel like I belonged and that sort of thing. I started designing this piece of clothing that could be worn as a robe, but also, worn to run errands and drop the kids off at school and that sort of thing. And she messaged me one day and she says, Zoe, I've got stage 4 cancer. It's terminal. it's not going to work out. And I was like, shit. And I was like, I think this piece of clothing's for you. Like, I think you're supposed to go get chemo and look fabulous. Like, she's not.
I know the story. Yeah.
And I was like, I think it's for you. And the sample's going to arrive and I'll send it straight to you. And then she asked me to come to Nelson and see her, and I just choked. I just like couldn't quite do it. And I made up a few excuses about being busy at work and that sort of thing. That night I had a dream about her, and she's like, it's my time and I've got to go and that sort of thing. She's like, but you're all good and I'll see you later. Like, and that was her words, is I'll see you later. And again, I woke up, bawled my eyes out and that sort of thing. And I texted her and I said, hey, I just had a dream about you. I've cancelled all my plans. I'm going to come to Nelson and I'll see you. And she's like, yep, sounds fabulous, girlfriend. Like, I'll see you. And then the next day, I was going out to the letterbox to get my sample, got it out of the thing, walking up the driveway, and I got a message which was saying Chloe passed away. And I was like fucking devastated because I was like, I had the opportunity to say goodbye to her and I didn't. Now I kind of see it that I did say goodbye to her and she said goodbye to me.
So too.
But that probably was a little point as well where I was like, Zoe, stop blocking this stuff out.
Yeah.
Just lean in, love. Like that was something that you needed. And to be fair, when I saw my granddad, I needed him there as well.
Yeah.
You know, I was in a relationship. It wasn't great. I was pretty much shutting down everything that really made me Zoe to try and fit into who I thought he wanted me to be. And I almost think him turning up in my life there was also giving me like a little push, like, you're good.
So permission. Yeah, that's right. And I think, you know, if someone said to you, right, well, there's one Zoe, how's Zoe going to live the life? Because life is short, you know, so what are you going to do? And what Zoe is going to be there? And what, you know, and I think that's the thing. It's like life is, think about all the dinosaur years and all of the millions of years. We're like a speckle of dust, not even a speckle on a speckle on a speckle of dust, you know?
Yeah,
totally. So why are we all walking around worrying all the time, you know? And then that's the thing. It's sort of like, well, I'm going to carry on doing me.
Yeah. The next one is, you would have heard of the invisible string theory? So pretty much it's like there are going to be certain people that are put into your life and you might cross paths with them at different times or whatever,
100%.
but within different lives you'll be connected to.
Yeah.
So I have a funny thing about you. So I don't know how long ago it was, if it was a year ago or 2 years ago, but I was in a hotel in Invercargill and I saw your name somewhere and I was like, Lou Heller, and I was like, I know her, she's stylist and stuff. And I saw you in the elevator and everything inside me was saying, Zoe, just say hello to her, you weapon, but I didn't. And so when I then met you at Breast Cancer Cure, I was like, okay, Zoe, now's your chance. Stop being weird. Felicity just said she's like that you're shy too, so maybe like you're gonna be okay. But I just wanted to say, like, thank you for being so open to coming on to the show, because there is a part of me where I'm like, actually, I think that I'm supposed to know you. And the more that I heard today about your life, your childhood, I don't know if you call them skills, but your skills or your talents and all the, you know, your intuition, all of those sorts of things. I resonate so much with them, but I'm also really inspired by that. So thank you so much for coming on to the show.
No, I loved it.
We should do a part 2 in the next season, because we've got so much more to unpack.
I know. I feel like I've only just started it.
And we need to talk about, you know, what you're up to moving into the new year. You've got lots of cool projects on and that sort of thing.
Yeah. I want to delve into like the year that I've just had alone. I think everyone's probably had one. It's like, see you later, 2025. But also massive sheds of skin, like massive snake. And I'm so ready for 2026.
Yay.
Yeah. So yeah, honestly, love to.
Amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you to our audience. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in season 3. Boom.